Well, one day after the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union, major uncertainties remain over how this will actually affect the global financial stability in the long term. And in the hours following the announcement, global markets tanked. Japan's stock market dropped nearly 8%, and Germany's diving close to 7%. Here at home, the day didn't end much better. The Dow Jones heading into the weekend, 611 points in the red, and an estimated $830 billion felt in losses right across the board. Joining me now to discuss this situation, Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell and chief strategist from Belpointe Asset Management, David Nelson. David, let's start with you.
Sure.
The U.S. market opened up with really what's the worst posting, the worst day since 2011. Do you think that the markets will rebound next week? Are investors going to remain jittery?
These are generally not one-day events. Usually takes some time to flush it out. If I had a pinpoint a day, then we might see a likely rebound. It might be a Wednesday, but it's going to take some time for this to all work out. I actually think in the long run this was actually more of a political event than an economic event. It was really a vote against the political elite in Britain. And it was very much the the people on the street. Some of our international managers were just over there, and they commented that when they talked to business leaders and politicians, they certainly wanted to remain. But the guy on the street who has to deal with the day-to-day influx of immigrants and how it's affected their job, they're the ones who voted to exit.
A lot of people call this, Nigel Farage, a politician in England, call this a victory for the ordinary people. I mean, is there anything to celebrate here, Catherine? I mean, this is democracy at its finest, apparently, right?
Well, H.L. Mencken said that something to the effect of democracy is the belief that the people know what they want and they deserve to get it good and hard. So is there an upside to this? I'm not convinced that there is. I think actually the people who will be most hurt by it are the working class people who voted for it. They're likely to lose some of the subsidies that they get back from the EU. They're likely to lose jobs to the extent that they have much in the stock market. They're losing assets in that respect as well.
You talk about young people, David. 75% of the young people, we're talking between the ages of 18 and 24, they wanted to remain, but the baby boomers won out because they had more votes.
I understand that, and for young people in Britain, and here in the United States as well, I think the young people in Britain, they think of themselves as more European. And I think the real loss for them is less about money, more about mobility. And mobility can translate it into money as well. But I'm going to take deference with what Catherine just said. I'm sure when the United States declared its independence, there were many that said this is an economic disaster, you'll regret it in the future. And we became the most powerful economic engine that the world has ever known. We don't really know what the outcome of all this is going to be. One thing's for sure, this is a wake-up call for both Britain, and it's a wake-up call for the EU. You might see some good things come out of this. Britain right now, the six original member states of the EU are now meeting in Berlin to discuss and chart a course forward. We might get some good news out of that.
And Catherine, it does appear, do you think it appears that the British voters were aware that this vote to actually leave would have such repercussions on the global economy?
No, absolutely not. There were plenty of experts who warned that this would be terrible for financial markets, that this could potentially jeopardize lots of trade between the UK and the EU and potentially other countries around the world as well. There were lots of warnings. They were, for the most part, rejected. The leaders of the Leave campaign even said, when asked, are there any economic experts that can say that this would be a good idea? One of them in particular said in a debate, well, no, but that's a good thing because I think this country is sick and tired of experts. So there were certainly plenty of warnings, but if you look at the response from voters in the days since this vote, they have a lot of buyer's remorse. You're seeing people going on TV, going on Twitter saying, well, I voted Leave, but I didn't think it would really happen.
But
shouldn't we have a revote?
Don't they have a point here, though? The European Union, my research here, hasn't grown more than 1% since 2000.
These people were already hurting right now, and things are already bad. So, somebody coming along and saying it might get worse, they're willing to roll the dice here. They want something different, and it translates over to this shore. It's very much what the election is about here in the United States. Immigration was a big part of the electorate, a big part of the election campaign over there. It's a big part of our campaign over here. I think time will tell how all this flushes out, but I think these people want change, and I think the EU in the end has probably likely failed. This is not the last country that's going to leave the EU, and I question the currency itself. I don't think you can have a common currency without a common government.
Isn't there a belief in economics that less regulated markets tend to do better? Could this possibly give Britain, the United Kingdom, a competitive edge?
I mean, it depends what regulations they replace the EU regulations with, right? It's not necessarily that regulation is good or regulation is bad. That's often the dichotomy that's presented. It's you need good regulation, not bad regulation. And there are some dumb things that came out of the EU.
There are some real dumb things. Some
right?
things like children can't blow up balloons. That's an EU regulation. Okay.
But
those are the kinds of things that really struck home to the British citizens.
But that said, I mean, the UK also has its own regulations. I mean, what's going to happen to the ability of workers to cross borders? That's going to affect the UK. How they decide to regulate worker permits now that there isn't free flow of
for someone
workers.
losing their job in Britain right now, that's probably a good thing. You know, they're seeing the workers come in, and they're seeing it's not even just the migration.
But you're also losing the access to high-skilled workers. I mean, there are lots of stories about people who are trying to join.
I'm not discounting it. There's a downside here. There's unquestionably a downside, but we're going to have something different.
And do you think they're going to send a message? The European Union is going to send a message when these trade deals are renegotiated?
That's the knee-jerk reaction that they want to punish Britain. But in the end, trade has to get done. There's life after divorce. They will work things out. If you live in France and you need a drug that's made in Britain, you're going to buy that drug. And the same for people in Britain that want goods from Europe. They're going to work this thing out. It's just going to be new agreements, and it's going to be a 2-year process.
All right. David and Catherine, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.